Morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of Longmont Startup Week 2021. So glad to see you back. And we're going to kick off like we did yesterday and each morning with a mindful awareness time together for mindful mornings. So I wanted to just take a moment to mention a couple things here about what we're doing together, and really take an opportunity to make a distinguishing note about the different kinds of practices. So there are lots of different types of meditation practices and mindful awareness practices, and those can be formal practices and they can be informal practices. Formal practices tend to be those, we'll be doing some each day where we're using guided instruction and meditation and practice for mindful awareness. So meditation is a very classic formal practice. So you're doing something very specific for a set amount of time usually. And then informal practices where we take these practices into our everyday life. And we're looking for how to show up in our everyday life and find the opportunities to practice all the time. So you can practice these individually, but really the beauty is how they work well together when you have some formal practice that you do on a regular basis that you know how to get yourself grounded, and then you carry that formal practice out into your everyday life. Everyday life is what really informs us of the need for these practices, and it really enriches the practice as we practice in everyday life. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is primarily I am sharing practices from the Vipassana tradition and the insight meditation tradition. So one of my teachers is Tara Brach, and we are using a lot of the content in her book, Radical Compassion. She has a lot of resources and information and does lots of workshops and online training opportunities and has retreats once we can get back to retreats from the pandemic. And I think there's just a rich body of information from where I'm teaching this acronym RAIN. So I wanted to offer that to make sure you know those are available. You can reach out to me on social media if you'd like to have a direct conversation. I'm Beth A. Smith on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So let's take a transition moment here. So this is where we're anchoring. We were doing one thing and now we're going to shift to another thing. And let's begin and practice together for a few minutes. So we'll take about 5 minutes here to practice in a formal way. So just take this opportunity, if you're seated or lying down or standing up, to locate your body. Just see what happens when I make that suggestion. Like, how would you go about locating your body? Coming into a direct awareness of your body. And again, if you're seated, if you'll take a comfortable posture, and that's an upright posture yet relaxed. And checking in with our posture in formal and informal practices is a really great way to take a moment to recognize where you're at. Remembering that we have a body that has all kinds of sensation and can generate so much information for us around our experience and what's going on for us. And now just allow yourself to notice the body breathing. And in this way, you're requesting your mind to actually witness the body breathing. There's a lot of awareness opportunity in the breath. You may notice it as it expands and then contracts. and the small movements that happen physically that helps the body breathe. And if your mind wanders off from the practice of witnessing the body breathing, that's just fine. So just with some gentleness and kindness, bring the mind back to the body breathing. Breathing its natural breath. And you may also notice that you can follow the breath and the body breathing while you also have some mind activity. Your mind may be wandering a bit. So you may be doing two things at once. Just allow that to be as it is. And then gently guide the mind back to the body. Gently asking the mind to pay attention to the breath. And if it's helpful, just take note to any way that you're narrating your experience right now, how the mind may be sort of making an inner story about the breathing. Just notice that. And just for a few last seconds here, tending your focus, your attention to the breath. And as you're ready, you can begin to drop that practice and transition from that moment. If your eyes are closed, you can open them, and what I'd like for you to do is just take a moment to look around the room as you come out of that inner experience, and just look around the room and notice objects without really saying much about them, just sort of moving your eyes around. So we'll be working this morning with the inner and outer experience that we are constantly having. So with the RAIN acronym, recognize, allow, inquire, and nourish, we're starting today at the very beginning with R and recognize in the RAIN acronym. And this recognizing is a really powerful practice around this whole idea of waking up. So I'm going to share an experience from this past Friday. And I like to share from my own life, just for many reasons. I think it's good to have some practical application to concepts and practices, and also to just share. I teach as part of my own practice, right? And sharing the way that I wake up is one of the ways that I do that. So on Friday, I have a meeting every 2 weeks with my meditation teacher and mentor. And I was sharing on Friday how much I'm struggling. I have a lot going on. I have a lot of real life stress right now, and I certainly have lots of tools to work with that. And so sharing with my mentor, I just feel like I'm struggling. And then I said, with some emotion, and here I am, I'm going to go like to Longmont Startup Week and talk to other people about the power of these practices. And here I am struggling. And as a great, well-practiced teacher would say, my teacher said, well, Beth, don't you think other people are struggling too that you might have an opportunity to talk to? And I was like, yeah, that's probably quite true. So there's a lot of power in learning in this recognizing practice of how to name your experience. And being able to name my experience on Friday, and certainly being able to name that with another person that potentially is a practitioner or even a friend, to say what's going on for you, can really shift things as we learn to practice being with what is happening in the moment-to-moment experience of our lives. So I'm not struggling this morning, right? That was Friday. And this morning I woke up early, and I was so excited to have this time with you, and also noticing that all of what we're experiencing is constantly moving. But the trick of the mind, the tricks the mind gets up to, is it wants us to believe that they're going to stay like that forever, right? In those moments where we're like, oh, I'm struggling, and oh my goodness, this is so hard. And then in another moment, it can completely fall away, and we can laugh about something, or cry and have that release of like the truth of what's going on for us. So recognizing is about the skill of learning to name what's going on. And in the naming, we want to be really simplistic. Because the other trick the mind gets up to is it likes to embellish everything. At least my mind does. My mind likes to get really active, like struggling and this, and it's because of that, and it just starts blowing all of it up with a lot of storyline. So here in naming, we're trying to get really precise, and we're trying to just use one adjective to name what's going on. How am I right now? And that answer is very precise. And then yesterday as we practiced, we asked ourselves that question, how am I right now? And we ask it 3 times. So as you practice really waking up to what's going on for you, you'll start to notice the first answer when you ask yourself, how am I right now, might be very different than by the time you ask it with a little space in between, how am I right now? And you may be doing that right now. And how am I right now? Usually by the time we've asked ourselves 3 times, we actually get more close to what's truly happening. And some of the reason for that is we've all been socialized in our culture to answer that question in a very habitual way, right? In a very passive way, pleasantries that we exchange with each other. And we've learned to actually not answer that question with a lot of truth. I know for me in the pandemic, that was a question that I used a lot. And as people ask me even now, as you know, the pandemic has been going on for, 13, 15 months, right? I actually say sometimes I don't know, because that's actually the truth of that answer. If someone says, how are you? And I pause for a moment and I say, I don't know. And of course, it engenders a very odd response often from the other person. What do you mean you don't know? Can't you just say you're doing okay or awesome or great, or some of those ways that we culturally interact with each other? But the other experience I have when I answer that question really honestly when I'm asked, and it's not always appropriate to do that, right? Sometimes it's appropriate to have the culturally appropriate, like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How about you? But when you're with a friend or someone that you trust that asks that, and to have a practice to be able to share that can really be an enriching moment of direct connectivity with another person. To say, I'm tired, or I'm too busy, right? I have a very busy life. I enjoy busyness, but in the last year and a half or so, I've noticed that I answer that question that I'm a little too busy. And so that helps me wake up to, okay, I can't change the busyness, but I can change the way I'm in relationship to it. So I can look for pauses. I can look for transition moments. And it really helps me keep the pace of my life rich and active without taking myself out of my life. It actually sets me right square into my life. So I've been practicing for about 25 years, and I wanted to share just a little bit about those early days of coming to an awareness that I needed something in my life and discovering these practices. So on the external of my life 25 years ago, everything really looked pretty good. I had a really good job, I owned a home, I had great friends, I was really active in my life. But I started noticing that something felt just like all of that good externally in my life didn't feel like that internally. It's just like, I would describe it as feeling sort of hollowed out, right? That those things in my life that I had been able to generate and be proud of somehow weren't creating perhaps the level of happiness that I had anticipated. And so a longer story that I won't share all the details, but I discovered a meditation teacher that I worked with for 6.5 years. And pretty early in my practice, I woke up to the habit I had around wishing things were different. And certainly my meditation teacher was able to help me understand that that's often an experience that humans have around wishing that things were other than they are, right? Even when things are really good, we can wish they were different. So I really started practicing with that idea of this wish for things to be different and how much suffering that was creating for me in my life. And so the practice of recognizing is seeing when those things happen. And recognizing helps us stay in direct relationship with what's really happening, rather than the story we tell ourselves about it, right? So wishing things are different, like yesterday, and I shared when I was in my talk, I left my notes at home. And the moment of, oh my gosh, I don't have my notes. And then being able to stay in direct relationship with that reality, and then be able to make choices as I was meeting the moment of like, no notes, right? I always teach with notes. So it starts to help us with the other practices around allow, inquire, and nourish. But it doesn't always have to happen in a sequence, right? So you can come into any one of these 4 practices in specific, however they show up for you. But recognize can be really one of the more powerful ones of taking us out of this habit of actually not recognizing things as they are, and then missing the opportunity to be in direct relationship with things as they are. So in my early learning also, the one thing, and we're going to practice with this here in just a minute, that my teacher started helping me see is because I like to be busy, I get in states of overwhelm at times. And I'm hoping that you can relate to states of overwhelm. And what will happen in these states of overwhelm is I feel like I don't have any space, like all of my to-do list, all of the pressures of life, work and personal, social, all feel like they're really on top of me, almost smothering me. And so this practice is about noticing that there's me, and the reason we work with our physical body is this is me and my physical body. There's space around me, almost always, and then there's everything else. So being able to recognize how I am in direct relationship with what's going on, often with some states of overwhelm, then this is a great practice to help with that. So we're going to take a transition moment, and we're going to practice for just a couple minutes here. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes. And it's also okay to drop your gaze if you don't like your eyes completely closed. And I'm just going to practice with you. If you want to watch me practicing, that's fine. And we're going to open and close our eyes during this practice. So just be in a comfortable seated or lying down or standing position. and come back to the awareness of your physical body. And then with all your sense perceptors, feel the air and the space that is around your body. You may actually feel some coolness or tingling on your skin. Again, drawing your attention to the sensation of space all around your body, 360 degrees, space at your back, space at the right and left side of you, and space in front of you. And now as you hold that awareness, if you'd like, you can open your eyes, holding the awareness of your body, the space around your body, and then you can move your visual cues around to just see all the things in the room, just things. And then come back again to your eyes closed. Remembering there's all kinds of physical things in the room. There may be people or animals. There may be tables and chairs, computers. And now again, feel the space between the objects, the space around you, the air around you. Coming back to your physical body again. We'll stay here with our physical body for a moment. And we'll actually engage with the breath here for just a second, with 3 breaths. So more actively than the natural breath, take a breath in. Just a gentle breath in, but awareness on that breath. And then allow that breath to leave the body. Breathing another breath in. See what you notice in the body as you breathe, and then allow that breath out. And this time, on this next breath, notice that the breath can have a sense of being round, almost oval, where the breath pauses at the base of your pelvis, and then it has a sensation at the top of your head as you breathe in and out. So again, take a breath in, feeling the bottom of the breath in your belly, and the breath out. Feel the sensation of that out breath at the top of your head. And as you're ready, we can transition from that practice. You can drop the practice and take just a moment to reorient yourself. So again, what we're doing in that practice is coming into direct relationship with our physical body and the breath in the body, the direct relationship of there's space around us, and then there are all these physical objects. So as you go into your day, I'd like for you to continue to look for those transition moments, and I'd like for those to be around where you're waiting. We wait a lot in our culture, at the grocery line, at a red light, lots of waiting. So look for those moments to come back and check in with yourself, how you're doing, see what you recognize. And then tomorrow, we're going to practice on allow. We're going to hang out a little bit more in what we notice. So I hope you'll be able to join us again tomorrow as we take a look at the acronym RAIN again. I hope you have a great day. Thanks, friends.